Good morning, children. Today, in this chapter, Circular Flow of Income, we are going to discuss how income is being circulated between different sectors in an economy. Now, before proceeding with this chapter, you have to understand a few terms that are used in this chapter. First one is factor services. What do you mean by factor services? When different factors of production like land, labor, capital, and organization or enterprise. When these factors of production render their services, it is called as factor services. For example, a labor or an employee working in any institution, they are giving service as an employee, so it is termed as factor services. Now, next one, what you have to understand is about factor payment or factor income. When an employee renders his services, he is paid for the services in the form of wages or salary. Then it is called as factor income to the employee and factor payment by the employer. Third term that is used in this chapter is consumption expenditure, which means when these employees, when they get income for their services rendered, after receiving income, what they will do is they are not going to save entire amount in banks. They will spend the amount in the form of purchase of goods and services. So when they purchase goods and services, they have to pay some price for the commodity that they are purchasing. This money paid by household will go back to the producer. So money spent by household in purchase of goods and services is called as consumption expenditure. Now moving on with the lesson. First one, meaning of circular flow of income. Children, here you have to understand three important words that are used, that are highlighted here. First one is generation, second one is distribution, and third one is circulation. What is being generated? Income is generated by the firm or by the producer in production process. How is it possible? That is, those households who are working in any firm, they have to render the services in order to earn income. Using the services, firms produce different goods. Once the goods are produced, what the producer will do, he will distribute it in the market for sale, where he receives income, where he generates income. Once he generates income through this production process, what he has to do is he has to distribute it to the factors of production that he has used in production, like in the form of rent, maybe in the form of wages and salary, or in the form of interest. So once he receives income, he has to distribute to different factors of production. Now let us assume households, they receive income. What they do is that they are spending it on purchase of different goods and services, which I have already discussed as consumption expenditure. Now what happens is that the amount spent by household goes back to firm or the producer. Using that income, the producer will distribute again to the household in the form of remuneration for the services. This is what we call as circular flow of income. Here, cycle of generation of income in production process, its distribution to factors of production, and finally, its circulation from household to firms in the form of consumption expenditure. Now next, it is different phases of circular flow of income. There are three phases. First one, generation. Second one, distribution. Third one, expenditure, also called as disposition phase. In the first phase, what happens is that the firms produce different goods and services with the help of factor services. Here we mean laborers, maybe permanent staffs or employees. So using these services by the employees, firms produce different goods and services. Second one, distribution phase. Here the producer or the firms, they have to distribute factor income to the households for rendering services to the firms, which is termed as distribution phase. Third one, expenditure phase. Once the firms or producer distributes income, what the households will do is that they will spend on purchase of goods and services that are produced by firms. This is called as expenditure or disposition phase. Moving with the next concept or the topic is differences between stock and flow. Now, when we say about stock, anything that is measured at particular point of time is called as stock. Now, for example, when you try to see the quantity of water that is there in the tank early morning, maybe around 6 o'clock, it is called as stock, where you are trying to find out the quantity of water that is available in the tank, which is termed as particular time, particular point of time. Now here it is flow. Flow means anything that is measured over a period of time. There is no duration here. You can measure whenever you want it. Then we call it as over a period of time. Or another example is when we say about stock, like our school normally gets started from 7:50. So sharp at 7:50 students are supposed to reach the campus. So this is particular point of time. And the duration for each and every period is 40 minutes. So that duration is what we call it as flow, which is measured over a period of time. Now this stock does not have any time dimension and flow has time dimension. The third one is it is always static concept, it does not change, and flow, it keeps on changing, so it is termed as dynamic concept. Now next topic is differences between real flow and money flow. There are two types of flow, real flow and money flow. When we say about real flow, this flow or this particular transaction includes only movement of goods and services. Then we call as real flow. Now how the movement of goods and services takes place? That is flow of goods and services between firms and household is called as real flow. Firms first use the services of household, then it is real flow. By using the services, what the firms do? They produce different goods and services. Again, it is real flow. Here there is no involvement of money at all. It involves only exchange of goods and services or transaction of goods and services, which is also called as physical flow. In case of money flow, this flow, when there is movement of money in any transaction, then we call as money flow. Like producer, after using services of households, he has to give remuneration to these households. So transaction of money, then it is called as money flow. Money flow is also called as nominal flow. Next topic is about circular flow in two-sector economy. Children, you know that there are four sectors in an economy. They are households, firms, government, and foreign sector. But in this topic, we introduce or we learn only about two sectors, and the main sectors that we are going to learn is households and firms. Now, any movement or any transaction that takes place between household and firms is called as circular flow in two sector economy. There is no involvement of government at all, no bank transaction takes place, or foreign trade is not there at all. So it is also called as closed economy. Now, how this transaction takes place? Now, when we take about households, they have to first provide services in the form of maybe building given to the firm, to the producer to produce goods and services. Maybe they will be supplying raw materials. Then again, it is required for a producer to produce goods and services. Maybe they are giving their own services, working there in any firm in different departments. Again, it is factor services. So first step is household should give factor services to firms. Now, when they give factor services, what the firms do is using the services, firms can now produce different goods and services. After producing goods and services, then they have to give factor payment to these households for the services rendered by households. What are factor payments? Payment made in terms of rent, wages, interest, or profit. They are called as factor payments. Now again, these getting this factor income, households will make consumption expenditure, which means they spend this income received on purchase of different goods and services that are produced by the firms, which is called as consumption expenditure. So the flow of the transaction that takes place only between households and firms. Whatever goods are required, they are produced by firms, and whatever the firms are produced are fully purchased or used by household. So the movement of transaction takes place only between households and firms. Then it is called as circular flow of income in two sector economy, or it is also called as closed economy.